the CEO of America's biggest bank, Jamie Dimon. We're here in Detroit, where J.P. Morgan has invested billions of dollars. And one of the key businesses that helped revitalize this one bankrupt city was banking. And the big question tonight is, what sort of relationship will big business, which is at the core of capitalism and at the core of New York City, what will they have with the new Democratic Socialist mayor, Zohran Mamdani? So I asked Jamie Dimon about his relationship with Mamdani. Here is our exclusive interview. So, Jamie, we're sitting here in a partially finished new office space in Detroit that you're building. Happens to be the day after a Democratic Socialist just won the mayoral office in the city of New York, which is home for you. Are you going to increase investment outside New York?
We're not going to make quick decisions about New York, not New York right now. New York has some great things going for it, as you know, like the human capital, the brain power, the financial industry. So it's a center for us. But my question, what really saying is, New York has to compete. No city has divine right to success. There are great cities everywhere. We now have more people in Texas than we have in New York. That didn't have to be that way. And so, if I was any mayor of any city, I'd be thinking about, what do I need to do to build a great city to help all of my citizens? And all the things that create good competition.
You talk about more people in Texas. All right, Zohran Mamdani, recently in a conversation I had with him, he said something that I wanted to play for you. Here he is. Do you like capitalism?
No, I have many critiques of capitalism.
You had recently referred, Jamie, to his platform such that you understood it as Marxist, was a word you used at a recent conference. Now, I know you just built that skyscraper in New York, right? You're $3 billion in. You can't just walk away from that, even if you wanted to. You got 24,000 employees, I believe, in New York altogether. I guess this is a very basic question, because during this whole mayoral election, there was a lot of talk of this. Do you think any of those employees are actually going to get up and leave New York City because Zohran Mamdani is mayor?
So, first of all, people have left New York City. You've seen hedge funds and certain banks and Ken Griffin, and I think it's a bad idea. I mean, you want to have a very competitive city. And I don't want to use labels. The important thing to me is policies that actually work. Do you make crime better? Do you make the schools better? Do you make the health system better? I want to lift up all citizens, too. I've seen a lot of mayors and governors say things like that, and they fail to do it because their policies may not be so bad, but the implementation stinks. So to me is get this stuff right. Learn. He's a young man. Will he get good at it? I see a lot of people in big jobs, including political jobs, they grow into it. They're learning, they're trusting people, they're figuring it out, they'll make mistakes, they adjust. I've seen a lot of people, they kind of swell into the job. They get worse. It all becomes about them or something like that. Ego. I'm hoping he's the good one. And that will be important for the future of New York.
So he did talk about you specifically today. Actually, at his first press conference, our Gloria Pazmino asked him about you, and I will play for you what he said.
I look forward to meeting with Jamie Dimon and meeting with anyone who is concerned about the future of our city and is invested in the vitality of that same city. I think it is critically important that we start to embody a style of leadership that does not demand agreement across every single issue in order to even have a conversation.
You've been doing this job a long time, okay? But this is a new challenge, right? When he says, he wants a leadership that doesn't demand agreement across every single issue in order to have a conversation, that's one thing. But back to what he said a moment ago, can you agree to disagree on something as fundamental as capitalism?
Look, I don't know what he means by capitalism. And when I read a lot of people, they say that these flaws are capitalistic flaws. They're not. Public policy works. There's income problems in communist countries and socialist countries, and healthcare problems in communist countries. There are bad policies that cause those outcomes. It's not necessarily capitalism. So when you say, what is your goal? I want to lift up all citizens, too.
Well, you've talked about income inequality.
Right. Of course. I think we have a problem. I think we have not lifted up the bottom 20% of society because their schools aren't working. We got to acknowledge that. How do you fix the schools? You got to acknowledge the problem. Their income didn't go up enough. I would double the earned income tax credit. Their crime is worse in those neighborhoods. So while they're being lectured to by other people, they're the ones who go to crime-ridden neighborhoods. Their schools don't teach them job skills. So yeah, we need to fix those things. Those things, in my opinion, are not Democrat. They're not Republican. They're not flaws of capitalism. They're not flaws of socialism. They are bad policy, badly executed. And so anyone who wants to fix those things, I'm all in. This mayor here, that was all he cared about. I want to fix the potholes. I want to reduce crime. I want the schools to work. I want to bring jobs. And you know what? Unemployment here 23% to 7%, and this city had gone bankrupt.
Right.
And now it's investment grade. You know,
And they did it, as you point out, right? One of the first calls that Mayor Duggan here in Detroit made was to you. And there
so
were
I called him.
You called him. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. And you talked. He rolled out the red carpet. He wanted you here. He wanted other big business here. He did things like tax incentives. Obviously, what we've heard from on policy in New York has been something different: an increased corporate tax rate, increased individual taxes at the high end. But in the context of what you've done here in Detroit, right? $2 billion that you've invested over the past dozen years. Mamdani said something else last night that hits right here in this room where we're sitting, and I'll play that.
We will prove that there is no problem too large for government to solve.
Okay, so obviously I picked that for a specific reason. Detroit came back from bankruptcy and has passed, what, 11 consecutive balanced budgets under Mayor Duggan here. The population here is growing for the first time in nearly 60 years. But the reason for all that, I would imagine you believe, is because the problem was too big for government to solve alone, right?
Yeah, I think, first of all, the government and business have to collaborate. If you just think one alone is going to fix the problem, you're probably not going to succeed. And government, and I'm not talking about the city government, government has to, they take your money, they should say what they took it for, what was the outcome. So we don't acknowledge that the inner city schools in New York aren't doing a good job for those kids. That's number one. I don't care if you're a union member, a parent, someone like me, we have a problem. Then you decide how to attack that problem. How do you get them the jobs and skills? And there are things that work. We learn things that work in Paris. We think things that work in Dallas. We think things that work in the aviation high school near Jackson Heights, where I grew up. That's what I care about, is getting the policy right that actually matters, and that can help a city. Getting the policy wrong, it'll be a disaster. So, government, the heavy-handed government has failed at so many things, and that we should acknowledge that. So, when you look at America and they look at this, what they call, I'm talking about D.C., the swamp of D.C., they want to know what happened to their money. How come the FAA is antiquated? How come the Veterans Affairs doesn't do a better job for its citizens? How come affordable housing is not affordable? How come we can't build pipelines that create cheap, good, low CO2 gas in New York City? How come we can't build new schools? How come we already spend like $800 billion in K-12, and then we complain about it. And I can go on and on and on, where, other than maybe the military, the government's got a lot of speaking up about what they're doing with your money. Is it efficient? Is it effective? How is it being used? And sometimes, as a business person, I always ask first, am I already spending what I'm doing well before I ask for more?
I know you had a brief conversation with Zohran Mamdani, or at least he told me that you did.
Yeah.
And I got the impression it was pretty recently, yeah.
No, but it was a long time ago, because I had not gone to a meeting. I was just telling him I didn't not go to avoid him. I was out of the country. And I said, feel free to call me, and we have not spoken
and
since.
You've not spoken.
I left a message today.
You left a message today?
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously you're willing to meet with him anytime.
If I find, I will, and if I find it productive, I'll continue to do it.
Been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.